the 12 steps isn't a self-help program, because if yourself could have helped yourself by now, wouldn't it have done so already? Right? So it's like, that's just part of getting honest, is I can't do this by myself. I need help, right? The three of the most powerful, most mature words ever spoken from anyone's mouth is, I need help. And when you say that, then the good stuff starts to happen.
Well, hi, friends. We're back at the Found Podcast with one of my favorite guests, Ian Morgan Cron. Ian was with me actually just last spring, just a few months ago, and we started an incredible conversation about his latest book, The Fix. But as you know, here on the Found Podcast, we're all about the power of story. And Ian shared his personal story, his journey of freedom, really, from addiction and the ways in which God is now using him in his life. We were both very honest with each other about our journeys with our family members, our kids to be specific. And we found great comfort in that. And I know that's part of the fix. Well, today we're going to pick up with part 2. And if you didn't hear the first part, I want you to go back and hear it. But the fix really explores how the 12 steps offers a surprising path of transformation for everyone, actually. This is the whole point of Ian's work. It's not just for those struggling with addiction. It is for each and every one of us. Our first conversation, we talked about the first 5 steps out of the 12, and today we're going to pick up with steps 6 through 12. Thank you, Ian. Welcome back to the Found Podcast.
Thank you, Lorie. It's really fun to be back with you.
Well, you know what? We went deep, I would say deeply personal in our conversation last time, which both of you and I are very comfortable with, as we know the power of story. But would you just start off with giving our listeners, if they haven't heard our previous conversation, a little bit about your own journey? Like, why would you even be writing this book, The Fix, focusing on the 12 steps? You had your own journey of addiction. Would you just give us a little bit of that story, Ian, so people can understand where you're coming from?
Yeah, the book was really motivated. It was really a passion project, right? Because, people kind of know me as the Enneagram guy, and I took a sharp right into a different direction. But it actually is quite in sync with my mission in life, which is really to present people with ideas and experiences that will deepen their experience of life, right? And so. My journey of recovery began in 1987, initially, and from a unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And I found myself in the rooms of 12-step recovery and found it very, very useful. Years later, I had a unfortunate relapse, which reinvigorated my love and my understanding of the 12 steps. And that's it in short, right? And then but to really even put a cap on it, I think, I just did an interview this morning with someone, and they were like, they also are in 12-step recovery. And they're like, wouldn't it be great if everybody had knowledge of the 12 steps and we're actually working this program? People think they're just for alcoholics and addicts, but actually the 12 steps is designed for life that everyone would benefit from, everybody. I'm just so excited to have been part of a project where I'm democratizing the steps, saying, hey, this is a way of life for everybody.
Well, you know what? That's exactly what it is. I think I was aware of the 12 steps for those people, those addicts, and that was great. And I thought, what an incredible story. And actually the founder story is an amazing story as well. But I just never really saw it as something that would benefit my own life, having not gone through specific addiction to, either drugs or alcohol. Well, the other day I was meeting with this young girl, and we're part of a small group together. And she's in her 20s, and I'm just quite a bit older than her. And we've seen her come on an incredible journey through actually years of addiction. She's now just recently, she's finally come face to face with her own addiction to alcohol. And as she would say, she went to Al-Anon, which Al-Anon is for those who have addicts in their life. And she discovered at Al-Anon that she was the addict. Now, before we unpack all of this, and I was just listening to her story and really just trying to encourage her along her own journey here, in the first 5 steps, we talked about people getting real about their own addiction. And as I sat across the table from her the other day, I'm like, how did you not see that you she would say an alcohol solution, that was her fix. How can we be so blind to the things in our own life, but yet we can see it in others?
Yeah, well, welcome to the human condition. The fact of the matter is we are really good at spotting other people's problems and sins and not very good at seeing them in our own lives. And Jesus spoke to that very directly, right? Take the splinter or the log out of your own eye before you judge the one in someone else's eye, right? Like, this is just how people are. We really treasure the illusions that we have about ourselves. People treasure the illusion. I'm a pretty good guy. Compared to lots of people, I'm a pretty good guy, right? And that may or may not be true. But the fact of the matter is that all of us have addictions, attachments, character problems, patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that are self-limiting and sometimes destructive and hurtful. And you can go a long time in life without seeing it and experiencing for yourself these things that are present in your life. But eventually you pay a price, right?
Yeah.
Like in relationships and in other ways. And so, one of the things the steps does beautifully is it brings us into a very clear-eyed relationship with ourselves. And here's how I would summarize it. That the steps really expose to us that we are infinitely more beautiful than we know and a lot more broken than we know. And we have to learn how to own both of those poles.
Yeah.
And hold them in tension all the time, to be open to learning the hard and the good things about ourselves.
Well, I can see why, in many ways, you say it was a hard right to go to write the fix after really you're the Enneagram, master and teacher. And for those who maybe don't know what it is, I would say it's a great get real about who you really are kind of tool. That's probably not the most professional way to say it, but the Enneagram was a great tool in waking me up to both the beautiful and the broken. And
yes,
right. And now the fix is like, there's like a pathway that you can take. There's some steps that you can take. If someone listening today, so before we're going to dive into, first, just summarize quickly before we dive into steps 6 to 12, what do steps 1 to 5 teach us, Ian, before we get into the next?
Yeah. Great question. So let's just run through them. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over blank. Now that could be alcohol, porn, sports betting, people pleasing, achieving, chasing success, greed. I mean, whatever. You just put it in there, right? What is it that we are essentially powerless over? We keep going back to that same old well over and over again, thinking we're going to get different results, and it doesn't work, or it works temporarily, and then but the negative consequences of it are worse, right? So the first step, we admitted we were powerless over blank, that our lives had become unmanageable, right? Emotionally unmanageable, maybe practically unmanageable, whatever the case may be. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory. So now in steps 1 to 3, you're repairing your relationship with God. You're right. You're with humility and brokenness. You're saying, look, I'm a mess, right? Like I've got a lot of forces, things happening in my life that just are not working, right? Now, when you get to 4 through 7, you're going to learn about, all right, how do I make peace with myself? And then in 8 and 9, when we get to it, you're going to learn about making peace with other people. And then 10 through 12, you're going to learn how to maintain a lifestyle that is all about peace, maintaining peace with God, peace with self, peace with others, right? Because here's an interesting thing, Lorie. I do a lot of men's groups, and I sometimes do an exercise where I sit knee to knee with a guy, right? 2 chairs facing each other, knee to knee, eye to eye. And I'll just say to the guy, what do you want? And he'll be like, well, I want to be a good father. Okay. Usually the first couple of answers are good, but they're not really the answer, right? Like you have to drill down. And I'll be like, good, what do you want? And then they look a little surprised that I keep asking, right? And then by about the 8th or 9th time I've said, what do you want? Oftentimes the guy is crying and it's just, I just want to be at peace with life. Right?
Yeah.
I just, I want some peace.
Yeah.
And, the steps offer us a route to finding peace through a relationship with God rather than settling for trying to get peace through eating too much, drinking too much, taking too many prescription medications, working too hard, performing to become the best Christian ever, trying this, over-exercising, whatever the thing is. Everybody's looking for peace. Everybody's looking for serenity. Everybody's looking to be okay in their own skin. The problem is the only way you're going to get that is through union with God. And when you take that desire for union with God and you bond it to a person, a behavior, or a substance, it turns into an addiction.
Wow. That is so powerful. I just feel like you've just hit on something. I mean, we talk about identity, finding our true identity in Christ, in God on this podcast. And it is that's exactly what it is, Ian. We all are searching for peace. And if we get defined by attaching ourselves to people, places, things, trauma, whatever, then we will never be at peace. But if we attach ourselves to God and who he says that we are, we will find our peace. You said steps 5 to 7, did I hear you right, are finding peace with yourself. And
so 4 through 7.
Yeah, 4 through 7. So we had talked a little bit about steps 4 and 5, I think, but why don't you just unpack that for us? 4 through 7, finding peace with yourself. Like, what do you mean by that? What's that look like?
So in steps 4 and 5, you're going to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself, right? So you're going to begin to look inside and take an inventory the way you would if you owned a store, right? And you're like, okay, I need more tomatoes, or this tomato's bad, got to throw it out, you're going to look at all of your character defects as well as assets. And really, it's a deep dive, right? And there's a form in the, there's a procedure for doing that, right? And so, in the fix, there's a workbook that goes with it that actually provides all those different types of forms and instructions and all that stuff. Yeah.
And
there it is.
You know what? I'm a teacher at heart. I love you made a workbook. Can I just say this? Because sometimes you read things and then you're like, well, how do I actually do that? So if mini course, I know it's a deep dive. But what would that look like? Give us an example of what that looks like.
So where we start is we ask people to do an inventory of their resentments, interestingly enough.
Wow.
Those resentments may be with people, with institutions, with, whatever it is that just going aside, like, who and what are you resentful about? Right? So it may be my mother or my brother, or my school, or I'm resentful at the government, or I'm resentful at, you know what I mean? Like the list, trust me, I have seen some long inventory lists, right?
Yeah.
People really underestimate how powerful and spiritually damaging resentments in your life are, right? And people have a lot of them, right? Or with yourself, right? And so we start with resentments, and then we say, okay, well, who are you resentful at? Why are you resentful at them? And then the next column is interesting. It is, what was your part in it?
Whoa.
And this is where it really, it's like, and because here's the thing. One of the things that the 12 steps teaches is that if something's going, it's like, if you're carrying a resentment, chances are, 99.999% of the time, you have a piece in this. Yeah. Right? You have a piece. So let me give you an example of how thorough, and you have to be very thorough about this stuff. So, I had an experience growing up of sexual abuse when I was a kid, and a person could say, well, you had no part in that. Like that was a complete, utter violation of your, et cetera, et cetera. But as I looked at it, carrying a resentment about it, I realized, and it's true that I didn't do anything to deserve that treatment. However, I have used it as a card in my, as a victim card as an adult before. And that has made me kind of complicit in this. You know what I mean? Like I have a piece in this. Like I have used that in ways that were really unhealthy and unhelpful.
Okay. Talk about that. The victim card. What does that look like? Like, why is that so powerful when we let what happened to us now define us as a victim?
So I'm only speaking about my own experience, but I oftentimes might give myself a pass, like on certain behaviors, saying, well, I was sexually abused as a kid. You know what I mean? And it's like, actually, just because that happened and it's terrible and it's inexcusable and all that stuff, it doesn't give you a pass.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you could there's always something that can be found, right? And here's why it's important. It's actually good news when you find your piece in it, because then you realize, oh, I'm not a powerless person. In other words, I have agency here.
Right.
And I can make different choices than the ones I'm making in the wake of whatever has happened to me. Right. Yeah. Like people do terrible things to people. Yeah. Right. And yet we can own whatever our piece of it is. And we have to be discerning about what it is. Right. I can't blame myself for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? As an 8-year-old, right? I can't blame myself for that. But so you have to be very discerning and thoughtful. I think we just have to be careful that when we have these resentments, these experiences, that we don't become complicit in them by further creating damage or hurt in the wake of them through our response to the situation. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It's actually super helpful. When I talk about identity, I was speaking this past weekend, talking about identity. One of the realities of identity formed in us, our view of ourself, can go back to trauma. And now we are letting the trauma define who we are. And unjust, not deserved, truly victim of circumstances and abuse, and not to diminish what happens to people. But to your point, we do have agency that we don't need to let it define us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. And by the way, that's called post-traumatic growth.
Right.
So, we talk about PTSD, but we don't talk often enough about post-traumatic growth. That in the wake of trauma, really beautiful things can happen if we set the table for it.
Yes.
Right? And I'm not saying it'll happen in a minute, but it will happen if that is your determination. That sometimes, there's an old saying that among our Asian friends, right, which is no mud, no lotus. Which just means you can't grow a lotus flower without mud, right?
Okay, get it. Yeah.
The mud of our lives can produce beautiful, beautiful things if it's stewarded properly.
Yes, absolutely. And that is such a good point, that so often we need to go on a journey of healing, which actually, that's what the fix is. That's what these 12 steps are, really, is enabling you to go on this journey with trusted individuals, in community. I mean, all the beauty of that's a very good reminder. So finding peace with yourself, one of the ways it looks like is dealing with resentments, dealing with the anger or hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's dealing with hurts, it's dealing with anger. But here's the thing: when you start to make a list of all the people you've hurt, and you start to name all the ways that you contributed to it, to these different ruptures in relationship, you're going to come up with a pretty long list of character defects, right? Like, well, I just caved. Oh, okay. So maybe one of your character defects is fear of conflict.
Right.
Or maybe one of your character defects is that you're hot-tempered. And in fact, even I think in the workbook, I have a list of hundreds of potential character defects, right? Like it could be lack of humility, right? I remember in the book, I used an example. I fired somebody once, and then they trash talked me to people I really cared about and spoiled a couple of relationships I had with longtime friends, right? But by misrepresenting me. And I'm like, well, what was my part in that? And it was like, actually, your part in it is that you're not a very good manager. You fired that person without actually giving them opportunity to improve their performance. And you embittered them.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, oh, that actually is sort of true. Right? Because it's so easy. Like we do this thing called totalizing. It's like, it's totally their fault. I am 100% innocent. They are 100% wrong. This is what's wrong with American politics in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This tendency to totalize. And it's like, you know what? I actually had a piece in this. So, you're going to come up with a good long list of stuff about yourself that's going to be hard to kind of own. And then the next step, 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Now, this is super important. It's not enough just to take that inventory of assets and character defects, right? Or to do your resentment work. And there's a sexual conduct inventory as well. Because oftentimes we've created damage through our relationships with other people, right? There's a number of exercises people can do, right? To kind of really unearth this stuff, right? To take a hard look at, okay, who am I? What do I got here? What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Then you got to go tell God, yourself, and somebody else the whole story. Now, this is important because this is right out of the Bible, right? Confess your sins to one another that you might be healed. It's so simple. And you know what? I'm so sad that Protestants don't have this as a part of their church experience. It was an overcorrection in the Reformation, and actually in the 1960s, like sort of just died off, And so people go to therapists now, and I'm a therapist, and I'm in favor of that. But to essentially to actually just confess, like, you know what I mean? And in the body of Christ, we should be able to do this for each other, whether it's in groups or one-on-one. People that are trusted, a pastor or a dear friend, maybe not a dear friend, maybe that's not the right person, but we have to pick a person that we can really share the true nature of our whole story. It's called sharing your 5th step with somebody. Here's what I unearthed about myself.
Yeah. And it takes humility to do that, doesn't it? I mean, none of us, we know how much in Scripture God hates pride, right? One of the 7 deadly sins, just hates pride. And you can see it in your own life where you just are really too proud to admit any part that you might have had or take any responsibility for. It's much easier to just point the finger and that's why, to your point, we have such polarization in our culture. Everyone's pointing the finger away from them.
Yeah.
But it takes humility.
Nobody wants to look inside. They want to look inside of everybody else.
That's right. That's it. No, it's let's expose everyone else's dirt. It's like, well, actually, what did Jesus say? Look at the log in your own eye. I mean, it is not a new problem.
No.
This has been forever in the human condition. But the power of community, and you and I both know and believe in this. I'm a pastor, you are a priest, actually, right? And like we've sat in rooms with people, but it's not even in the role of pastoring or being in ministry, my deepest experience of this, Ian, has been in small group. Just small group, just a committed small group of people that meet regularly and we get real with one another. Our slogan really is show up, join in, and be real. And when you can do that, it's so freeing. It's so life-giving when you can humble yourself and confess to one another. And there's power in the healing of that. Anything else you want to say more about that? Where we are in the steps of that.
It's just really important it's very important that we bring into the light all of what we have found in our inventory, right? Like, because all addictions, all self-defeating behaviors fester in the dark. They grow,
right?
They mushroom, they spread, right? They metastasize in the dark, right? And here's the amazing thing about a fifth step. Right? Like, most people go into a fifth step, and I've heard some doozies, right? Where, I had this affair. I did this. I did that. I watched porn. I did this. I did that. And they look at you like you're going to run out of the room, like covering your mouth, appalled. And I'm like, the vast majority of the time, right? I'm always like, is that all you got? Is there any more? Like it's like you just did human stuff. You're just describing human stuff. This is the stuff that humans do when they're not at their best, right? And so when they're spiritually out of sorts, right? And so it's such a beautiful thing. People feel so much freedom after doing a fifth step. They feel so relieved of shame and guilt and secrecy and hiding, and it's so much energy to keep it all hidden, and there's such a relief, right? All right. Then we get to 6 and 7, right? And in 6 and 7, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And then 7 is humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So remember, back in 4, we got this list of character defects of all these things about ourselves, also the assets. Let's not forget that, right? And then we shared it with another person. And then, then the next step is, I want to overcome these defects of character. How do I do it, right? Now, this sounds so ridiculous, but it's amazing how many Christians don't get this. The typical Protestant, Catholic, it doesn't matter actually, Orthodox sort of response to what do I do next? It's like, try harder.
Oh yeah. I thought that's the way it was.
Okay.
Try harder.
No.
Do better.
Try harder.
That was my mantra.
Try harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
addicted
to trying harder.
Whoa. Okay. Well, actually, that is an addiction, right? And just striving, right? Just, and Paul would have been scratching his head at us, like, what are you doing? Like the fact of the matter is that you are here because you have tried everything. You are working these steps, chances are, at some level, because you have tried everything to make yourself into a better person, right? Or to reverse whatever it is that you're doing. And you have failed.
Right.
And in the first step, you have said, I am powerless over this person, behavior, or substance. Like, right? So the only logical next step is to say, to become entirely ready to have God do for you what you cannot do for yourself, namely heal yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So now you might wonder, well, why would anybody need to become entirely ready to have God remove their key defects of character? Well, very simply, it's because we have some defects of character we really like.
True. That's true.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So here's a defect of character. This is not one of mine, but it's a good example. I am somebody who has a lot of opinions about how things should be done correctly, and when people don't do it my way and fail, I like to tell them, I told you so.
Wow.
Okay, so let's say that's like a defect of character. Now, for some people, it's like, I have to give that up because that feels really good when I say I told you so.
Yeah.
I kind of like being able to say I told you so, right? I find it kind of weirdly, perversely delicious, right? Or maybe it's like I'm a workaholic and I can't stop working and I'm making a ton of money and I'm buying Range Rovers and Mercedes Benz and I'm having the time of my life. People think, and it's like, yeah, but you're a workaholic and it's your family is suffering and you're suffering as a result, and you're using work as a replacement for what only God can give you, which is a good self-worth and a positive self-regard and et cetera. It's like, yeah, but if I give that up, who am I going to be?
Right.
If I'm not Mr. or Mrs. Success, who am I going to be?
Right.
So it's almost like, so I love that at this point in the steps go, okay, well, before you just jump to asking God to remove all these defects of character, you might want to just take a second and ask yourself, do I really want him to?
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's like Jesus at the pool of Siloam where he goes to the clearly crippled man and basically asks him a question like, do you want to be healed?
Yeah, because that guy could have said, well, now that I think about it, this is how I make my living.
Right.
Right? Like this is how I get money.
It's kind of working for me.
I lay here. It's kind of working for me. So, I mean, that's the thing. You have to understand that our sins, our character defects, whatever terminology you want to use, in our twisted minds, we think they work for us.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So it's like, or we want to say, I really do want to give up that lust thing, but only 75%. I'm going to hold back 25, God. Can we do a little bargain here? Can we do a little transaction? You can have 75% ownership of that particular domain of my life, but not and this just gives you more pause to really look at what's happening, right? And to ask yourself, do you want to get well?
Yeah.
If so, then the next step is just humbly ask God to remove your shortcomings. So what does that mean? It's like, God, I'm powerless over these behaviors. I can't fix or heal myself. I have to turn this over to you. And sometimes I have to do it 100 times a day until my broken brain realizes, oh, this isn't really working. So I've had some character defects miraculously healed almost instantaneously. At the same time, I have others I have struggled with for 50 years to get over, right? Like I'll be vulnerable for a second. I love people's approval. And sometimes I say and do dumb stuff to win it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know it's a character defect. I do really want it removed. And I am in a process where, now, do I do it nearly as much as I did? Absolutely not. Right? Like the tide is turning. But, one of the things that's frustrating for people, especially in our technological age, is understanding and accepting that all spiritual transformation is very slow, almost universally slow. It just takes time. Right. Perseverance is such a big thing. So that's 6 and 7.
Well, thanks for joining me here on the Found Podcast. If you'd like to see more incredibly rich conversations like this one, go to loriehartshorn.com/donate and be part of a growing number of people who are supporting this ministry and the team that is just actually doing a great job. For $20 a month, that's less than a coffee a day, you could really make a difference helping us reach more people with the good news of Jesus. So thank you for those who have said yes, and back to the conversation. But to your point, you were miraculously also set free of some character defect. And
oh, yeah.
In some cases, addiction can be you can be freed of that addiction. But
yes,
the honesty is that most of life is a journey of growth, of learning, of continually getting real and being willing to be humble and submitting again to the leadership of God in our life, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that the founder of AA, Bill Wilson, and the guy who wrote the 12 Steps said, I love this. He goes, we are not saints. The point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines, right? And we have a mantra that's also in the literature of recovery, which is, progress, not perfection. It is focus on progress, not perfection. And so there's some nice guardrails there to make sure you don't become like a hyper scrupulous, overly beating yourself up every 5 seconds for doing something wrong. But that is not the way this is done. You develop humility, you develop patience, you develop a kindness as you go on that journey of transformation, and knowing that God is infinitely patient, right? And that our desire is to get better and better at some of these things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if I could be really honest, I shared with you, I met with this young lady recently, and, you know, she's had her journey and struggles and years of addiction, and of course, there's always a backstory there. And she came to Christ, and I had the privilege of baptizing her, and so excited for a great life, hope, and a future. And she's just had some unfortunate, really cycle back. But I can also see part of it is because she's really getting honest and real about where she's been. And I will be honest, Ian, I felt frustrated. Why do you have to go back? Why would you go back? Like, it's so frustrating. And the Lord just really spoke to me and said, like, Lorie, it is grace that she needs. Like, that's self-righteousness on your own part, that you would just think, okay, like, you're fixed. You came to Jesus. You should know better. You know, like, I didn't say all those things, but inside I'm just feeling this frustration. I was just really reminded, like, this is a journey. It's a journey for her, and God's going to keep revealing to her more of what she was actually holding on to, and for, you know, all the right or wrong reasons. I just felt really convicted myself that I was losing patience, because I know God does not lose patience with us. Is that not the truth?
Yeah. Yes. And actually, whenever I lose patience like that, it's because I'm usually not right-sized.
Yeah.
I actually think I'm better than.
You know what? 100%.
You know, and the fact of the matter is, I have to stay eye to eye with people.
Yes.
And not feel like, why can't you conquer this? Because the subtext is, like me.
Right.
You
and
know?
Honestly, the Lord he did really convict me of that, and thought, like, who are you to think that you could be, you know, somehow frustrated, or you should be where I think you should be at, or whatever. I mean, it was just like, they were fleeting thoughts. I didn't sit on them or act on them, but I felt them. And I was frustrated with myself that they came up again. And I'm like, why did that even come up again for me? You know, but it's been something from my own past, that I've been hard on myself, and can be hard on, you know, and the Lord's like, there you go again. It really had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with me. I'm just confessing my sins right now to the priest.
Oh,
you
no,
know,
that's
as we
so
meet.
good. I'm so glad you are, because it puts real life on this thing. Like, so if you were in a 12-step program, you would, like, call your sponsor, or you would write that down on your list of character defects. You would call your sponsor and say, you know what, I got this pattern. Yep. Okay. Well, that's something to work on, you know, and then how do you begin working on it? By turning it over to God and saying, you know what, God, I have this tendency to get self-righteous and judgmental of other people when I don't think they're following my wonderful plan for their lives. I need to have more humility and patience, and you soften over time.
Yeah.
And you just gently over time, the more you face the truth about, this is my struggle, over time, it softens, it changes, it evolves into something better than what it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, sometimes this stuff sounds, I worry sometimes that people get the impression that doing this work of 12-step stuff sounds glum. It's not. Like, this is an adventure. Like, you're learning things about yourself.
True.
In that moment. And now, just sharing it with me and sharing with other people, I guarantee you, has softened your grip on that unhelpful behavior moving forward just that much more.
Well, do you know what really helped? And it was exactly what you said. It was a fleeting thought. I felt instant conviction. I'm like, yuck. But it was there. And then what helped is, I went to her, met her eye to eye. Let's go meet up. Let's go have a talk. So we went and sat across each other at a restaurant. Tell me your story. Tell me what's going on in your life. When you look another human being in the eye, Ian, it just puts you right on the same level playing field. I was able to hear her struggle, her challenge. I had empathy for where she was at. I tried to listen to understand. And you know what? I think this is a missing component in our culture. There's a lot of finger pointing. I mean, we don't want to go down the whole, we love social media, we use it ourselves, but there's just such a negative narrative in this. It's sickening me as to, you can judge and make statements about people from a distance that you actually don't even know. But would you say those things if you had to sit across from them and look them in the eye? I really think that would be the solution to much of our trouble in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, there's new research about that, by the way, and I do not love social media. Like I have to use it because I have a business. And so things that, I'm in a predicament right now.
Right.
Because I feel so negative about it. Because people can become the most absolute worst version of themselves on those platforms. And actually acting savagely, saying savage kinds of stuff. And there's a new research about the addiction to revenge that has emerged. Because when you send a hateful tweet or post out there, and then people start writing back, right? Or you write something and people just savagely attack you for something but not pretty benign, right? The people who do that are getting a dopamine hit every time they hit send.
Right.
Right? So the reward system in your brain is registering that now as a new addiction. It's like, oh, every time I do that, I get feelings of power and anger and strength. And right, it's like, it's kooky. It's like, I hate to say it, but for me, unfortunately, what we've created there is it's just a cesspool.
Well, it's yeah. You know what? I mean, that is actually not surprising that there's research and studies showing what is actually happening in your brain when we behave so badly, because we can all behave badly. And we know that so much of it is connected to our thoughts and our patterns, but this dopamine hit, that whether it's the healthy version of yourself or not, it just feeds that dopamine. And so you need more, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very powerful hit. And as a friend of mine likes to say, we need more oxytocin, less dopamine, more oxytocin, right? Which is the more nurturing, hormone that gets released when you feel safe and secure and, all the good stuff. Dopamine is really,
Well, it's a fight or flight.
The dopamine hit, it's a very powerful force.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. That was tangential.
I know, but I was just tracking with you. Carry on. Yeah.
All right. So when we get to 8 and 9, right, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And then 9 is made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Right. So we've now made peace with God in steps 1 to 3. And I do that every day. That's sometimes multiple times a day. In 4 through 7, you've done the work of looking at yourself, of really taking a hard look, of seeing what's beautiful and broken about you, right? In the process, you have relinquished any illusions you have about fixing you, that God is going to have to do that. But you can cooperate. And then in 8 and 9, it's like, well, now along life's way, I've hurt some people. And I'm also carrying that. How can I make, so now it's about restitution and reconciliation, right? Now it's about, okay, so the person I was angry at in step 4 and I wrote down my resentment at them, well, here was my piece. Now I need to go back to that person who I fired and say, you know what? Without ever bringing up the fact that they badmouthed me to people, all I can say is, I'm really sorry that I did not give you an opportunity to, improve your performance and keep your job. Like you just go back and you make restitution. You just reconcile with people. And again, this is a gospel idea. This should not be revolutionary to your listeners, right? They should think about the text that says, hey, listen, if you're in the temple and there's somebody that you have a brother or a sister that you're in broken relationship with, leave immediately and go take care of that and then come back. Right? So just going through the world with this posture of, I want to be at peace with people. And every time I do something that hurts somebody, I come right out, I say it, I name it, I say, look, I did something, I ask your forgiveness, how can I make it up to you? So it's pretty simple.
Simple, and yet probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah. So in the book, I tell a story. I was really in a bad mood one day, and I was really short with a barista at a coffee place, and I was really mad after this interaction. And I called my sponsor, and he says, sounds like it's time for you to do a 9th step. And I'm like, no. He goes, yeah, what would happen if you went back there and just apologized?
Wow.
So I did. I went back, and I was like, hey, you know what? I was in here about a half an hour ago, and I was really a jerk, and I'm really sorry. And she started crying. And she's like, and I was rude to you. And here's why I was rude, because I had a fight with my boyfriend this morning. And there's and next thing I know, I got a free coffee and a brand new friend.
Yeah.
And a new friend named Felicity. And so, it's like, this is how God would have us move through the world, as people who are, healers, not provokers of problems and conflict.
You know what? I mean, thank you for sharing that story. I do believe it is all about the gospel. I mean, if we can practice getting real with ourselves, humbling ourselves before others about our own failings, but also be willing to go to people, there it is again, directly, and be willing to say that we're sorry. We've really lost the art of, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have. It is really important for us as people of faith that we recover this posture of how can I move through the world as an agent of reconciliation and of advancing goodness and good relationships with other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, it's just life-changing when you're able to do that. And I know in my own life too, when I'm able to not be on the defensive or self-preserving, which is part of my Enneagram number, which we won't get into, but the self-preservation, which can stop you from taking ownership, not being defensive, but saying, I'm sorry. There's so much power in that. And it just is such a freeing thing in the way in which we can move in our world. I think the world definitely needs to see more of this from the church. And we're all flawed and failed, and the church, even as a, culture, we could go there. But the fact is, we just need to say, I'm sorry. And it would do so much to break down barriers to those who have been hurt and then misperceive who God is.
Yeah, the problem is that there's a lot of people out there who are addicted to being right.
Yes. Wow.
And that addiction to being right stands in the way of you ever saying, I did something, I was wrong. So, it's a very complicated conversation, right? Because if edit this out if you choose, but if your identity is rooted in, let's say, a political party of any kind, right? Then anyone who comes along and challenges what you think, right? They're not just challenging your opinion, they're challenging your identity. Right? That's why you have these crazy, savage conversations going on. People feel like if you disagree with me, you are completely erasing who I am. You are negating me. Right? But if your identity is in Christ, not in a party or in an opinion, if your identity is in Christ, you're free to say, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was wrong.
Yeah. We are not editing that out.
Or I
that
can
is right
listen.
on.
Yeah, or I can listen to your point of view without
Yes.
feeling it is a threat to my survival.
Right. I mean, this is why, honestly, why I wrote the book Found, why I believe so much in talking about this conversation of identity, because when we allow the wrong things, even our association with an ideology or a political view or a religious view or whatever, and it becomes what defines us, that is our identity, then anybody who challenges that is like you said, they're attacking you in your being as a person. And we've lost sight that no, like we don't all get it all right, which is probably the first thing to admit. We're not all right. You're not all right about everything. And to not allow your identity to be so formed and attached to these movements or ideologies or lifestyles so that you can't even hear other people. I think it's a very important thing.
Yeah, it's also really dangerous.
Very dangerous. I mean, we have literally seen this played out recently in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And no matter your view of him or how he operated in his assignment, his life, cancel culture, I disagree with you, therefore I will kill you, assassination. This is it not got to the extreme? This is the extreme form of what we've been heading to for a while.
Yes, unfortunately, true. And I just wish that Christians were the ones at the forefront of positioning a different way of thinking and being in the world, rather than actually stoking.
Do you think that this will help that?
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. But I think actually, oftentimes what this leads to is just a doubling down on what's not working.
Right.
So they just turn the heat up. Oh, we just 10 degrees hotter.
Right.
And human beings we should never underestimate the human capacity for self-delusion. Like it is incredible, right? I have heard followers of Christ say things on both sides of points of view of things where I'm like, that is extraordinarily blind. And you are not seeing how you asked me right at the front end of the show, like why is if you're an alcoholic, you can't see it. It's like, I don't know. Look at your life.
Right.
You do this everywhere. I do this everywhere. Right. But at least I know I do it. So I'm open to being corrected.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
People are running around with so much certainty.
Yeah.
About positions, and there's a lust for certainty. And I understand it because it's all about the lust for certainty is rooted in anxiety and fear. And so if I don't feel, give me a narrative or a story or a way of thinking about this that feels certain to me, that explains everything. And when you have that need, and that has addictive qualities to it too.
Yeah. And boy, it can lead down a very dark path of turning against each other so quickly. Well, these steps are really an antidote, a pathway to waking up, not being disillusioned, not putting your head in the sand. Actually, it brings such freedom to be self-aware, others aware, God aware. Take us down, take us to the next. We're at about step 10 right now, admitting when we're
almost
wrong,
done.
right?
Yeah, so continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, right? So, 8 and 9 is sort of a formal making of a list of people that you need to go back. Maybe your ex-partner, your ex-wife, husband, an estranged child, whoever it is, you need to go back and you need to make amends for your part in what went wrong. You don't have to assume responsibility for the whole of what went wrong, just your part. We call it sweeping your side of the street. You don't have to sweep theirs, just yours.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you get to 10 to 12, what it is like, okay, I've now made peace with God, steps 1 to 3, myself, 4 to 7, with others, 8 and 9. Now, how do I create a life that is living by these spiritual principles, right? So in 10, 10 is just, listen, when you goof up, when you mess up, you continue to notice when that happens, you take personal inventory and you go back and you own it, you know?
Own your stuff.
In
That's
11,
right.
In 11, it says sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. So it's developing spiritual practices and disciplines that keep a heart open and warm, right? And also a heart that doesn't need to attach itself to a person or a substance or a behavior to feel at peace in the world, right? You're rightly attached now to God, right? And so you're just cultivating that relationship, keeping it strong. And then finally, in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to, in AA literature, it would say alcoholics, but we could replace that word with whatever we want, our fellow sufferers, our fellow human beings, and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Mm-hmm. You know what? It's such a beautiful journey. And as I've read through the fix, I'm slowly going through the workbook. As I have conversations with you, Ian, and thank you again for joining me here. I think this is for me. I know there's a few others listening, but I'm telling you, I have just really been blessed by our conversation. What it does for me, even in hearing these last parts of the steps, is, I have some spiritual practices. They're very simple. It's like every day I just meet with God first, and I have my coffee and I have my Bible, and I just go to him first. Now, I'm not perfect at it. It's not a self-righteous, I tick the box. I think it was like that many times in my life before. But now it's just, I need to position myself to be very aware. Today I need you, God.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that does for me. Prayer, scripture, and just the awareness that I need God. I need his leadership in my life.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's a big word for that in psychology and other fields, right? It's called contingency. It's the feeling of reliance and dependency.
Yeah.
And, whenever I get really anxious, my sponsor will say to me, do you think it's possible because you're being overly self-reliant? And if you were more God-reliant, would you not feel less anxious? And it's just he doesn't say it to shame me or to blame me. It's just a little reminder. Hey, it sounds like you're thinking like you have to be in charge and take care of everything. What if you turn that over, right? And say, God, this is in your hands, right? This argument with my kid, I got to put this in your hands. I got to do my part, which is I may have to go back and make an amends or do whatever. But also it's, me needing, sometimes my attitude is wrong because it's like, I got to fix something. And God's like, why don't you just put that in my hands, And so, yeah, those spiritual practices, they're important.
They are.
Just to remind us of our dependency.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say independence was my drug of choice for many years. And that's why practicing dependency is very important for me. And it's become so freeing for me. I don't now, I can go into my independent ways, but I'm more awake to it and alert to it now. And I realize that path leads to exhaustion, overburdensome, stress, taking on the burdens of others that actually don't belong to me, all of that fun stuff, which you can get addicted to, right? And now leaving those concerns and the concerns of others in the care of God. It could be my age and stage when you become a grandma, and we're multiplying quickly here. We're having baby number 6 come. I love it. They're coming like bunny rabbits these days. I love this season in life where it's allowed me more time to be really reflective and honest about who I am. The need to not fix other people. But to actually let God be the fixer has been very freeing for me. And just let him fix me, let him do the work in me.
Yeah. Yeah. So recently, and I just actually preached on this somewhere, this crazy song I found. Back in 1969, a guy named Lou Reed with a band called the Velvet Underground wrote a song
Sounds like a
Jesus.
punk rock band or something, but no?
It was. Well, Lou Reed is actually quite famous as a songwriter, and he was also a wild man.
Okay.
And so it's wild that he wrote this song, right? But the lyric is this: Jesus, help me find my proper place. Mm-hmm. Jesus, help me find my proper place. Help me in my weakness. I'm falling out of grace. Jesus, help me find my proper place. I think it's so theologically brilliant. And here it was, coming from Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. And then years later, Glenn Campbell did a cover of it that's beautiful. And what I love is that line. What you're describing when you're saying that, as I'm getting older, what you're really saying, I think, or what I hear you saying is, as I have found my proper place, I don't have to be fixing everybody.
Yeah.
I also don't have to throw my hands up in the air and completely disown responsibility for anything, right? It's like that's humility. Humility is finding your proper place. I can do that. I'm capable of changing this. I am not capable of changing that. It's just a clear-eyed understanding of who you are, broken and beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, a sinner and yet beloved. Carrying these tensions in one little human body can be hard sometimes and confusing, but that's just part of the thing, And I love that idea that you were expressing of just, I'm just getting more comfortable in my own skin about who I am, what I can do, what I can't do, and I'm okay with it.
And that is really the message of your writing in so many ways. Whether it's through really the Enneagram journey or now the fix. Final words, Ian, as we wrap up here. I know, get the book, get the workbook, do it, right? Go on the journey for sure. We'll put all the links, but final word to someone listening that maybe feels like I'm stuck in the cycle, they're stuck in the cycle, just can't find the way out, can't find the peace they're looking for. What do you say to them?
The first step of the journey of recovery is honesty. And it is actually owning that, admitting it, and then proactively seeking help. So if you have someone who's listening who has an alcohol or a drug problem, and, I meet drug problems of all kinds. I'm not talking about a heroin addict or a meth addict that's sitting in a dumpster somewhere. I'm talking about, there are lots of people who call themselves functional, but really have problems with substances. It could be food, right? It could be a behavior. It could be gambling. It could be, which I hear about so much more now than I ever did because of the rise of sport betting through the internet, right? Or it could just be people pleasing, or you're addicted to a person in a codependent relationship that's just hurtful to you and them. Whatever it is, just get honest. And then the next step would be with yourself. Like, this is a problem and I can't fix it. I'm powerless over this problem. Every time I try to stop doing it, I can't stop doing it, right? Then seek help, right? Like, just go find a therapist, go find or even better, find a therapist and find maybe a 12-step group that actually addresses your particular area of need. If you're a workaholic, there's Workaholics Anonymous. If you're an overeater, there's OA. If you're, there's an abundance of 12-step opportunities out there. And just begin the journey of change. And here's the thing, like, I don't think about substances anymore. That's not even my game. It's not. I don't do this till I don't drink. I do this because the steps have given me a way of life, right? It's like a rule of life that feathers perfectly with my faith. And, that means that, now I do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an adventure now.
Yeah. So good. And I know that can look, the theme in all of this too is in community. Like, this is not a Lone Ranger adventure. And so, right?
Yes.
It has to be done in community.
Well, I have a saying. I say, the 12 steps isn't a self-help program, because if yourself could have helped yourself by now, wouldn't it have done so already? Right? So it's like, that's just part of getting honest is I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
right? The three of the most powerful, most mature words ever spoken from anyone's mouth is, I need help.
Wow.
And when you say that, then the good stuff starts to happen.
Yeah. So good, Ian. Thank you so much. I will find a reason to have you on the podcast again. So are you writing another book? Or what are you doing next?
I'm not right now. I'm thinking about books, but I haven't landed on one that is making the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And that's usually I know because I get sort of a real fire in my belly, but I got a zillion ideas, but not one yet has ignited a fire.
Well, it doesn't have to be a book. I love our conversations. I so greatly appreciate and feel very honored that you would join me here. Thank you. Thank you for who you are, for your life work, for your transparency, for the ways in which you are leading people to freedom, to healing, to just a better way of life and living. Thank you so much for joining me on the Found podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you too for joining us. Whatever I told you, it was going to be one of mine, and now it's one of your favorite conversations. Here's a big takeaway as I'm just thinking about this for our conversation today. Transformation doesn't just stop with surrender. We've heard about surrender, but it grows as we practice humility, as we pursue healing in relationships with other people, and as we walk daily in dependence on God. That's what I heard today. And whatever you got out of today, I would say you take that takeaway and you get on with it, because we want you to have freedom and discover your true identity and purpose in Christ, because there's so much beauty to be found there. If you haven't yet listened to part 1, go back. It's episode 25, released last May. And of course, grab a copy of The Fix. And on Thursday, I'll be back with Found and Focus to do a devotional based on what I heard today. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Found podcast. I hope you're feeling encouraged and excited to step into everything God has for you. Don't forget to follow and subscribe so you won't miss a single episode. And if today's show encouraged you, please share it with friends and give us a shout out on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.